Here's one. One about work. Difficult people. I suppose the hardest time I have to deal with a person being difficult, because they're not entirely difficult, is colleagues at work. And I'll find I can't deal with them very well when I'm stressed. I know it never goes well to deal with someone difficult when you yourself are in a difficult and stressed place. But sometimes there's no escape. You can't walk away and deal with it later. So I suppose I would ask for some tips to deal with a person being difficult when you are in a tough, stressed place at the time yourself. What a wonderful question. I love it. Absolutely love it. Now, I read that and I'm going to be honest, I couldn't identify a problem. I was like, yeah, when I'm in a low mood, I lash out and stuff, and like I don't choose to do that, but that's that. If I'm caught up in my thought system and I'm maybe sleep deprived or hungry or hangry or something, I'm not going to be at my best. So yeah. Oh, you want to change that? and yeah, I just don't see the problem there. I don't see the problem there at all. It reminded me of a really angry moment I had recently. And here's a little reading that speaks to this question. This one's called Back to Life. And it starts with a quote from our friend Jamie Smart, who said, "A signal is only as good as your understanding of it." This morning, I lost my temper. Unexpectedly and quite spectacularly. I experienced what my wife, Riley, calls a diary malfunction. I learned I'd accidentally arranged an important video call with a brand new client into a slot when the house, and quite likely my office, would be overrun by a gaggle of summer holiday excited 8-year-old girls. An easy enough mistake to make, just one overlooked checkbox on my calendar's booking system. But the intensity of my frustration most likely stemmed from the fact that this was the second time I'd booked a client into that very slot, and I still hadn't learned my lesson. The air turned blue, and my wife and daughter fled downstairs for cover while I raged at my own stupidity. Thankfully, my daughter is a miniature Zen master, and a fearless one at that. She came running straight back upstairs to tease me. "Dad, what are you doing? Don't you teach people not to be angry for your job? Why are you letting this bother you?" Her audacity, curiosity and delightful take on what Dad does made me chuckle too and gave me cause to reflect. The brief flash of anger had already passed. It wasn't a problem now, but nor was it a problem then either, which I explained. You see, I've learned that any feelings that arise are okay, however strong. I'm not in control of them. I certainly wouldn't have chosen to fly off the handle like that, but I can understand them and what they're telling me. I experienced white-hot anger in that moment because in that moment I was very strongly attached to thought. I'd got my little ladder, I'd climbed up the outside of here, I'd jumped on in and I'd shut the lid on top of me. That's what I'd done. In that moment, fantastically real-looking thoughts of inadequacy and ineptitude were being believed. In that moment, beautifully ornate future thought creations of consequences and of what other people might think of me were being taken really seriously. And in that very same moment, Life, in all its glory, was waiting patiently, utterly indifferent to the war being waged in my head. When we're lost in a thoughtscape of our own making, believing it to be true, we suffer. Indeed, this is why we suffer, to point us away from thought and back to life, to wake us from our daymare and return our attention to the now. Not all that long ago, I'd have stayed in those thoughts, maybe for hours, and as a consequence, I'd have procrastinated on resolving the diary clash, thereby making it worse, and ruined the morning's productivity by endlessly debating my self-worth, feeling miserable the entire time. As it was, since having realised the innate wisdom of all such emotions, it was gone as quickly as it came. The obvious solution had been dispatched, and the whole debacle was sorted and forgotten in minutes. None of the feelings you experience are a problem. They're all evidence of the human operating system working perfectly. It's only ever the mind that will try and convince you otherwise. Something I promise I will gently be reminding my daughter of the next time she blows a gasket. With love, Giles.